We're going to hear each other speak, give some opinions and some takes about the Jets and the Giants. We'll start off with the Jets, who are probably in a little bit worse scenario than the Giants, just because their quarterback is Justin Fields, who's been given every opportunity to succeed in the NFL, and he just hasn't been able to put it together. Some people say it's a situation. Some people say it's him. I'm partial to somewhere in between. We'll see with the Jets. There are some talent on offense. This could be a Justin Fields year to finally break out. I'm not sure I see it. Max, Trey, what do you see in the Jets this year?
I mean, this is a weird year for them because I feel like this is like the first time the Jets haven't really been talked about too much in national media, I feel, because, all right, they lost Aaron Rodgers now, which I think is a good thing for them. And, they're done, long done with that Zach Wilson era when they had that crazy defense and that horrible offense that was led by him. I'm very curious to see what this Jets team does because I think for the first time in a while they're kind of like they're not being talked about much, so there's not much pressure on them to really succeed. But Justin Fields, I definitely think you're kind of underrating him a little bit. I think he's a decent quarterback, and I mean we saw what he did with the Steelers last year. I honestly thought they should have kept on playing him those first few games when Russell Wilson was injured. Because he was doing really good. He's doing really good with them, but the preseason kind of looks a bit rough. Because they are passing very poorly. I don't know why they only had Justin Fields out there for like one drive the second game. I don't know why he didn't play at all yesterday because I don't think he didn't really look too great. Those 2 games. The first game he looked fine.
Well, it's because like right when they signed him, they came out and said he's a starting quarterback no matter what. Even though Tyrod Taylor has probably looked better throughout camp in the preseason, it's because he's already been named their starter, so they don't really need to see him. And they'd honestly, at least from a coaching and front office perspective, would rather he played less, so there's less chance for him to screw up and make their decision look bad. So the less he plays before the start of the season, the better, because the fans can't call him terrible and call for the.
You're gonna let him end on a one. You're gonna let him end on a 1 for 5 day.
You'd probably rather that than him go out and
continuously doing that. If you did that again, that's even worse.
Yeah, it's worse. So the less chances you give him to look bad, the better, because you've already named him your starter and you can't go back on that. So it's at least what I suppose. Yeah.
But I mean, really, look at the rest. When you look at the offense, it's like they actually have a decent offensive line this year, and I mean, finally, it took them like almost a decade to do this to get something decent going. So I think Breece Hall should have a pretty good year this year, but. If their preseason passing woes keep on happening like this, it's going to be a really one-dimensional offense because, I mean, like, the ball cannot be in the air right now. Justin Fields is not able to make his connections with his wide receivers. Garrett Wilson's really the only wide receiver I'm scared of in this room. Really, the rest of the wide receivers not really putting much fear into me. And,
I don't know. Personally, I'm a big fan of Arian Smith out of Georgia, I believe, is where he's from. But rookie, I think he'll probably cement himself as a pretty solid wide receiver too behind Garrett Wilson. Again, it's not as deep as it's been, but there are some bright spots and some places for some hope. You got some younger wide receivers who can learn behind Garrett Wilson, can learn from Allen Lazard. I'm not sure how much you want them to learn from Allen Lazard, but like he's been in the league for a while. Maybe ignore some of the hands issues with Allen Lazard, and you give him, just more of the just welcome to the NFL type leadership. Maybe don't rub off the actual on the field play, but Allen Lazard's been around a lot of good players around Aaron Rodgers for a long time, around Devontae Adams. So there's some hope that these more veteran receivers can maybe mentor these younger receivers a little bit. And maybe there will be something, give Justin Fields some sort of target outside of Garrett Wilson to throw to.
Yeah, and I think what Justin Fields said earlier, I think it was earlier this week, about them not necessarily having the most exciting offense. It's going to be a little bit shorter passes. It's going to be really about just progressing, getting those first downs. If I was a Jets fan, I don't think that's something to worry about. I think that's actually something to be excited about, a quarterback who isn't necessarily going to try and do the flashy stuff, just rather going to try and get the job done. Because, like we were saying, we don't know if it was the system with Fields. We don't know if it was him or the system. So this is his opportunity to show that he can win some games, and I think he's willing to put away the flash to get those wins. And I mean, it's all about just getting the small yardage, right? I mean, if you keep getting first downs, eventually that last goal is the touchdown. So I think I did see a lot of stuff on media just kind of a little bit worried about that comment. You know, we're going for 8-yard completions. We're using the running game, and we're just going for short completions. Don't think that's the worst thing in the world for Jets fans, because they did just deal with Aaron Rodgers, who, as a Packers fan, you know, I know how that is. He may not always throw the best passes, and then all of a sudden it's the wide receiver's fault, right? And so it's just, I think Justin Fields is there to work with his teammates instead of have his teammates work for him. So I think it'll be good. I mean, you never know. Preseason, like we were saying, like, you really never know what to expect, because just like spring training in baseball, just like preseason basketball, just like preseason football, it doesn't mean anything until the season starts. So it's just gonna, you know, who knows what happens.
I think
It's the Jets.
I think this is a Jets team where you should be happy if you're not a bottom 10 offense, and I think that would be.
It'd be improvement. You want to see improvement.
I think the ceiling and the hope is probably, you know, like a borderline, you know, that 17, 18, you know, borderline average offense.
Team.
If you're like a fringe, you know, like a fighting to be like an average offense, and you know it's a defense that's not as great as it has been in past years, right?
Still a good defense. So.
It's a defense that has some very high end talent, but some of
a little
those
disappointing last year.
The depth on this defense is not there. It's nowhere near what it was 2 years ago when Aaron Rodgers first came to the team, and and that defense was able to, you know, carry them to still being an okay team even without their quarterback.
Yeah, it was the worst thing that ever happened to the Packers his last couple seasons on the Packers. He was worse for the team than he's beneficial. Same thing with the Jets. He was worse for the team than he was beneficial. So
didn't he win an MVP like his 3 years before 2 years before he left?
I think it was 3.
Yeah, so I mean, his last.
That's what I said. I said last 2. I did say
you
last
said
2.
Last couple.
Did I say last couple or last 2?
Last few. Last couple. Last few too.
Last couple's last 2 though.
I said last few then. Last few. I don't know. I'm right. You're wrong. That's clearly what that happened. Yeah. I don't know. This Jets team. I think. I just don't see it. I think it's going to be a.
And they have a rough start to the season too. Their schedule is.
I think you're happy with a. I think you're ecstatic, honestly, with a 7-win Jets team. I think you're.
You don't need, your expectations shouldn't be we're winning the Super Bowl and destroying everyone.
Yeah.
Which I think they honestly thought when Aaron Rodgers came. A lot of people probably thought Aaron Rodgers was going to change a lot.
Yeah, but Rodgers is gone now. I think a lot of Jets fans are properly rating this team as a team that's, you know, not going to be very good, but
they want to be pleasantly surprised.
They you know, a 5-win season would be terrible. Would be very would not make anyone happy. But I think a lot of Jets fans are settling in for a season that could look very much like that. I think a 7-10 team is something they'd be honestly happy with. If this is a Jets team that's competitive, if it's a Jets team that at least puts out a product that keeps fans tuning in every week, you know, that's okay. If this is a team that, you know, is putting up 150 yards of offense week in, week out, and giving up, you know, 300, 400 yards on defense every week, it's not. But if you're a 7-win team that's competitive and it's in games, and, you know, Justin Fields is fun to watch at least, you know, even if he's, you know, throws for 20 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, but he runs well, or you know, if there's some exciting plays every week that, you know, you have to tune in because Justin Fields is going to do something exciting, I think Jets fans will be happy with that. I think they've kind of resigned themselves to.
How good do you think Justin Fields has to be this year for the Jets to stick with him next year?
I honestly don't see a world in which they do, because I think this is going to be a team that is picking, you know, in the top 15 of the draft. And there are some pretty decent quarterbacks coming out.
He'd have to be amazing.
Yeah, you know, there's, you know, Cade Klubnik, Drew Aller, Lenore Sellers, all Just to name a few quarterbacks coming out next year. Potentially Arch Manning. I don't think
I don't
Arch
think
Manning
this
comes out
happens.
next year, but this is a Jets team that's going to be drafting, in the top half of that draft, and so Justin Fields would have to play.
He wants to get them to
He'd
the
have
playoffs.
to. He'd have 3,000 yards passing, 600-700 yards rushing, and 30 total touchdowns type of season. I think he has to be a borderline top 10 quarterback for them to stick with him, and is the talent there? Maybe. I just don't see it, and that's unfortunate because he's a guy who I really liked out of college, but I just don't. I don't see a world in which Justin Fields is even on the Jets next year.
I mean, maybe as a backup, or
Maybe,
at least like
but
a week
I don't
one
know.
starter, and then eventually phase him out. But I don't really see it.
I don't know. I
I
think
mean, they only have him on 2 year. He's only on 2-year contract, anyways. So
if he gets shipped off, he's just going to be like perennial backup quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
which is, I mean, if I were him, I would take that and just wait for another opportunity.
Yeah,
I don't know if the opportunity will overcome though.
that is true. But moving on from a team that I guess at least in the current moment in time has their quarterback position solidified for the upcoming season, to a team where they'd like you to believe that it's solidified, but I'm not sure. At least myself and I know Max and maybe Trey even are pretty skeptical on what the actual quarterback situation for the Giants looks like this season. Russ has kind of been named the starter, and a lot of people expect him to be the starter. But if this Giants team comes out and they're 2-8 going into Week 11, do we see Jaxson dart if Russell Wilson can't recapture some of that magic that made him a borderline top 3 quarterback in the league for so much of his career? If Russell Wilson isn't even, if like he's been the last couple years a below average NFL starter, if that's the Russell
happens-
Wilson we get, do we see Jameis early? I would hope that the Giants have enough sense not to play Jaxson Dart this year. Let him sit. Let him be.
I think he has such a good opportunity to learn from just speaking of Russell Wilson, right? Like learn from a guy who's done it almost all in the league, right? And it's a great opportunity to learn from him. And then the way Jameis Winston looks at the league and looks at the game of football, learning from both those two, they have two completely different perspectives of football as it seems, right, when you see them. Learning from both of them would be the best thing for him instead of, say, Wilson goes down and all of a sudden you throw Dart in right away. I don't think that would be the best. I do think he starts a couple games this year.
very
But I
ends.
don't. If I'm the Giants, I am not rushing into this, especially after what they just went through last season. I think they take it easy. I think they let him learn as much as he can, and that's if you look at the NFL, every time a young quarterback comes out and is very dominant, it's usually after he's taken some time to learn from the veteran quarterback ahead of him instead of just being tossed out there and kind of like figure it out on your own, like learn from fire, learn from mistakes. But in football, that's difficult because, I mean, you don't want mistakes to turn into habits, as we were talking about earlier.
With baseball, yeah. And there's no reason to rush because we all know the Giants are not going to be a good team this season. I mean, but they have some interesting future though. Malik Neighbors, obviously great wide receiver. I still think Brian Thomas Jr. is better than him, but that's because I'm a Jaguars fan. But regardless of that, I mean, you saw everything you needed to see from Dart, right, in the preseason. He was phenomenal there, and I think that's really what you need to. But you don't want to hurt that opinion anymore. Not anymore. You don't want to hurt that opinion of him because people right now are very high on him. Why throw him into the fire of mid-season or even starting him early and potentially ruining any of that kind of confidence that he's had built up? So yeah, let Russell play. If Russell doesn't work out, let Jameis play because Jameis is very used to that backup role and he'll be able to help the Giants maybe win a game or two. But I think definitely let Dart. I don't want to see Dart not play this whole entire season. I do think he should start at some of the very few last games when they're out of the playoffs and it doesn't really matter anymore. But I do think that it would be great to see him, but definitely when there's not pressure on him and you're playing kind of carefree football because you know the season's over.
Yeah, and I think this preseason just proved that he was worth the draft pick and he was worth picking up.
Which I was pleasantly surprised about. Cause
yeah, and I
when
mean
saw
I
that,
think
was
that's
like, ooh.
the best, like that's what you want, and I think you start with the people that you know can deliver and have had experience, because you don't want to just immediately give up on the season, right?
Yeah.
Or at least I wouldn't say putting Jaxson Dart in would be giving up on the season, but like
if Jaxson Dart plays in a game that matters this year, the Giants have not only failed him, but they failed the franchise as a whole. Because Jaxson Dart, if he plays a single meaningful snap of football this year, there's a problem, because it means either Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston are both injured, or that this coaching staff has significantly failed to do what they're meant to.
And then Dable's gone.
Because and I think Dable knows that it's in his best interest that Jaxson Dart develops as best as he possibly can, because he's your starting quarterback next year. Jaxson Dart will be the starting quarterback next year. I don't think that's up for any debate. But this year, he needs to sit and he needs to learn and he needs to soak up as much as he can sitting behind those two guys. And also, it gives him more time to develop a relationship with Malik Neighbors, to develop a relationship with some of these skill guys. But yeah, I know you two would both like to see him. I think it's best if he does not play at all this year. If he's not even suited up, like I think Jameis should be the number 2, and Jackson.
he shouldn't even be. I agree.
I know.
The first
I know.
couple weeks, I don't think
On
he
the
should
depth
even
chart,
be.
on the depth chart, I know he's currently the backup, and Jameis is the 3rd. But I don't think that Jaxson Dart should be suiting up on game days, even because if Russell Wilson does go down, again, I don't want Jaxson Dart playing meaningful snaps at all this year. And I don't want him playing any snaps really before about week 13.
He'd be better off just having a headset on.
Yep.
Like getting that side of the game.
Go stand next to the quarterback coach.
Yeah.
Go stand next
just
to Jameis.
figuring that out
figure
from
it
there,
out.
and then, if later in the season's not going great. I mean, I wouldn't even say necessarily start him. I would just say, season's not going great,
week
game's not
15
going great.
second half ball.
Let's throw him in, get him some live gameplay, and then. I mean,
I think he
that's
should
best.
have a little bit of experience before he becomes
But
a full starter.
I think I agree with Barrett, where you just need him to learn as much as possible, especially when the team is still in a very competitive part. Right, beginning of the season, everyone has a chance. So, like that, they're going to be playing their most competitive football in the beginning. So it's better for him to learn than go back.
I would agree, and that's really all there is to talk. Unless either of you have anything just pressing you got to talk about with Giants football.
No, it's real. All the conversation really is about is Jaxson Dart.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, again, like I said with the Jets, I think the Giants are a team that I think there's more talent on the Giants roster. I think you have a more experienced head coach and a head coach that's really coaching for his job at this point.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit more upside, and a 500, 8-9 win season isn't necessarily out of the question. And that would be kind of just through pure grit. But this is definitely a team where if you are picking in the top 10, you wouldn't be shocked. But there's a lot more Giants fans would definitely be a lot more disappointed than Jets fans would be if they had that top tier pick. But that will conclude our little bit of NYC football talk. With we had that Fordham preview that was incredibly well done from our broadcast crew. We had some Jets and Giants talk, but now we're gonna head into a break, but then on the other side of that break, we're gonna close out our show with just something I know both of you mentioned at the start. You're very excited for. I am as well. It's a Mount Rushmore of the best, most exciting, most memorable sports games that we have ever witnessed ourselves. We'll do a Mount What do you
I don't think it's necessarily
fine.
ourselves.
Okay, you know what? I've personally watched every single game on my list, and the reason I picked it is because it's memorable. You guys probably just went on Google's most memorable games of all time. That's lame.
Oh wait, do you mean like we saw live ourselves, or we could have seen it any time?
I guess anytime if you watch it at any time.
I got you.
I know what's on your list, and I know you've watched maybe. You haven't even seen one of these games.
I've watched 4.
Well, it's Mount Rushmore, so they're all 4. So
No, I've watched 4 out of the 5, and I have honorable mentions.
If you watched first whistle to the last whistle of every single one of these games.
Watch 3.
The movie doesn't count, by the way.
I didn't count the movie.
Okay. That might have just given away one of yours, but I don't care. We'll talk about it on the other side of this break. Very exciting Mount Rushmore. We'll see you on the other side.